Open the book at random. Any page in the first 100. Any sentence. What you will find, if you are reading it for the first time, is a paragraph that appears to be broken. Time slips inside a single line. Somebody named Caddy is a child on one side of a comma and a young woman on the other side of the comma. A character named Quentin is speaking to himself 30 years apart in the same paragraph. There is no warning. There is no signal. The only guide the reader is given is a change in the typography. An italic passage floats up out of the Roman text like a piece of another decade breaking through the surface of the current one. If you have never read The Sound and the Fury, that is what you are dealing with. It is the reason the book has been called unreadable for 90 years. It is also the reason it is arguably the single most technically ambitious American novel of the 20th century, and the reason William Faulkner, when he was asked at the Nobel Prize dinner in 1950 which of his own books he loved most, answered without hesitation, this one. The failed one. The book he could not, he said, ever quite get right. The claim I want to make today is that The Sound and the Fury is not, as generations of tired college freshmen have suspected, an experiment for its own sake. It is not Faulkner showing off. It is not stream of consciousness for the sake of stream of consciousness. It is a novel in which the technique is the argument. The broken time is not a decoration. It is the whole thesis of the book. Let me explain. Faulkner was, by his own admission, obsessed with a single image before he ever knew there was a novel in it. He said in a 1957 interview at the University of Virginia that the book began, in his head, with the picture of a small girl's muddy underwear as she climbed a pear tree to look through a window at her grandmother's funeral. Her 3 brothers were on the ground below her, watching. That, Faulkner said, was the image. That was where the whole thing started. He tried to tell the story of the girl who climbed the tree. He wrote the first section. It did not work. He wrote it again from the point of view of the second brother. It did not work. He wrote it from the point of view of the third brother. Then he wrote a 4th section, in a third-person voice, that tried to hold the story together. And in the end he decided he had written 4 failures and would publish them as they were. 4 failures around one image. He said, of the book, I never got it right. But if we look at what those 4 failures actually do, we see a shape that is not a failure at all. It is a slow, deliberate reconstruction of time itself. And it is the only technique that could tell the story he was trying to tell. Here is the shape. The first section of the book, dated the 7th of April 1928, is narrated from the point of view of Benjy Compson. Benjy is 33 years old on that date. He is severely cognitively disabled. He has, in the medical vocabulary of the 1920s, a mental age of about 3. He has no sense of chronological time. He has no verb tenses. Everything in his life is now, and every trigger, a smell, a color, a piece of pasture, a voice, will drop him instantly into a scene from any point in his 33 years. So the first section of The Sound and the Fury slides, page by page, between at least 15 different moments in Benjy's life, from about the year 1902 to the day the section is set. The italic passages are the older memories. The Roman type is the present. But there is no calendar. There is no narrator explaining. There is only what Benjy sees and smells and hears, arriving in whatever order the world's smells and sights arrive in. To read the first section, you must, in effect, become Benjy. You have to give up chronological time and reassemble the story from fragments that arrive without labels. It is exhausting the first time. It is heartbreaking on the second reading. What you slowly discover, as the fragments accumulate, is that Benjy is remembering over and over, in every scene, in every stitched image, his older sister Caddy. Caddy in the muddy underwear. Caddy in the pear tree. Caddy in the door with the wisteria smell on her. Caddy, Caddy, Caddy. Benjy's world is made of a single loss. It happened years ago. He does not know what year. He does not know how long ago. He only knows Caddy is not in the house. And the entire 100-page section, in its brokenness, is a portrait of a mind that will never be able to grieve properly because it will never be able to place the loss in time. The second section, dated the 2nd of June 1910, is Quentin Compson, Caddy's older brother. Quentin is 18 years old, in his second semester at Harvard, and this is the last day of his life. He will kill himself by drowning that evening in the Charles River. His section is also fragmentary. But where Benjy's fragmentation is neurological, Quentin's is voluntary. He is trying, with all the force of a 19th-century Southern moral education, to reconstruct a coherent story of his family's honor, his sister's sexuality, and his own responsibility for both. He cannot do it. Every attempt to think a straight line falls apart into a memory of Caddy. Every clock he passes reminds him of his father's Bergsonian speech about time is your misfortune, and every clock he passes he wants to break. He breaks his watch that morning. He breaks it deliberately, before he leaves the room. It does not help. Time keeps arriving. The third section, dated the 6th of April 1928, is Jason Compson, the third brother. Jason is 35 years old, a small businessman in the town of Jefferson, Mississippi, and he is the least fragmented of the three narrators. He is also the least sympathetic. Jason speaks in a clean, hard, chronological voice. He tells you what happened yesterday. He tells you what happened this morning. He tells you what will happen tomorrow. Jason is the only one of the three brothers who has, functionally, defeated time. He has done this by hating everything and everybody around him. He has flattened the memory of Caddy into a grievance. He has flattened his mother into a burden. He has flattened his own life into a ledger of resentments. Jason's section is deliberately the easiest to read. That is Faulkner's point. The only way to think clearly, in this novel, is to become emotionally dead. And the fourth section, the 8th of April 1928 Easter Sunday, is a third-person voice, centered largely on Dilsey Gibson, the elderly black cook who has run the Compson household for decades. Dilsey is the only character in the book who has an intact relationship to time. She goes to an Easter service that morning at her small black church. The preacher, a visiting man from St. Louis, delivers a sermon that becomes, structurally, the emotional resolution of the entire novel. And Dilsey, walking home afterwards through the muddy streets of Jefferson, says the sentence that gives Faulkner his title. I've seen the first en de last. I seed de beginnin', en now I sees de endin'. That is the shape. For narrators, 4 ways of standing in relation to time. Neurologically broken. Suicidally overloaded. Emotionally frozen. Religiously reconciled. Here is the argument the technique is making. The Sound and the Fury is a novel about a family that has lost the ability to hold a moral history together. The Compsons are a southern aristocratic family in decline, but that framing is too easy. Faulkner is not just writing about the fall of the antebellum South. He is writing about what happens to a family, any family, whose members can no longer share a story of who they are. Each of the 3 Compson brothers has a different past because each of them is stuck in a different part of it. The novel is broken because they are broken. The typography is jumbled because the memory is jumbled. The only character who can see the beginning and the ending is the black servant that the Compson family has, for 100 years, taken for granted. She is the only one for whom time is not a wound. That is the argument. And it is why the technique cannot be taken out. If you rewrote The Sound and the Fury in strict chronological order, as one graduate student did, for a doctoral thesis in the 1960s, and as several ebook editions have tried to do, you get a boring story about a Mississippi family whose sons are variously disturbed. You lose the whole book. Because the whole book is that time itself has broken, and that broken time is the medium in which grief actually lives. Which is why the book still matters. We live in a world that is very good at pretending time is chronological, that memory is organized, and that a life is a straight line from birth to now. Anybody who has actually lost someone, or actually loved someone, or actually watched their family come apart, knows that this is not true. Memory does not work like that. Grief does not work like that. The past keeps arriving without warning, in italics, in the middle of a sentence you thought was about today. Faulkner built a novel out of that fact. Not around it. Out of it. That is why he thought he had failed. Because you cannot, in prose, ever quite match the actual rhythm of a human interior. And it is why he was wrong. Because that book, more than nearly anything else written in English in the 20th century, comes as close as writing has come. If this changed how you think about The Sound and the Fury, subscribe. We break down the most important books ever written, one argument at a time. New video every week. And if this was worth 10 minutes of your life, hit like. It helps the channel more than you think.